Coming back to Will Smith for a second.
Hey, don't come back to me after that. You better let that thing cool off a second.
So in between all those blockbusters that I mentioned.
Now he gonna play Wild Wild West after that. See, that's what you do, Scott. I know. I knew you was gonna do me like this.
No Wild Wild West tonight. We are here to talk about, in between those popcorn movies, you were doing some character studies every few years that were actually, I don't know if this was coincidental or not, but biopics for the most part, and each one of them, just when people thought they had figured out what you do, you come and hit them with an Ali, Muhammad Ali, 2001, and that was for Michael Mann, or you play Chris Gardner, this homeless father who is trying to do his best in the pursuit of happiness, 2006. Oscar noms for both of those, by the way, just incidentally. And then Dr. Bennett Omalu, a Nigerian immigrant to the United States who figured out that concussions lead to CTE in NFL players. Three tremendous biopic performances, and I guess I wonder, leading into, let's not get into King Richard just yet, we're coming to it, but I mean, the fact you've played a number of real people who, in I guess each case, were alive at the time you played them. Talk about what drew you to those films, the sense of responsibility when you are playing somebody like that.
I think first off, I'm attracted to biopics. I'm much more comfortable as an actor if I have a model, right? So, I consider myself naturally a comedian. I consider myself naturally leaning towards comedy. But if I can see someone do something, I can mimic well. Right, so it was easier for me to make the transition into drama when I had a full model. How the person talked was already decided. How the person walked was already decided. What the experiences were. So it felt like I can't not safer, but it just felt like I could do it more effectively. Even with Chris Gardner, having spent the time with Chris Gardner and just how he dressed and how he used his hands, I noticed those kinds of things. So the biopic is a comfortable space for me.
And didn't you? Maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I think you spent some time with Ali too,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. I spent probably the first 4 months of prep working with Ali, and I remember when he called me and he asked me to do the role. I was terrified of it at first, and he called me and we sat down and we talked. And
did you know him already? Do you know what made him think of you to play him?
I think Ali had spent a lot of time in Philly, so when I was growing up, I never saw him, but would always hear Ali was in Philly. Joe Frazier lived in Philly, so Ali spent some time there also. I think it was his sense of humor that I understood first. We met, we sat down, we talked, and he had put on some weight. So I'm sitting and we're talking. I reached over, I tapped him on the stomach and said, "Hey, what you got going on there, champ?" And he said, "Oh man, this ain't nothing but a young girl's playground." And we laughed, and that was my first insight into it. It was like, oh, okay, we had similar senses of humor, or sense of humors. Yep. Which one is correct?
I think senses.
Senses of humor. I always get that wrong. I don't know if there's if it's points of view or point of views.
Secretaries of State.
Secretary, yeah. It always confuses me, you know, but it's not important. Wasting a lot of time with things that just aren't important. Scott will fix it in print. He'll fix it in print.
So the idea, though, of a character study, I know that even when you were so Ali is 21 years ago.
Wow.
It's crazy, huh?
Jeez.
Yeah.
It does not feel that way. I would have guessed, it was about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
My knees know it was longer than that. You know?
Well, the thing, though, is I think ever since then you've said there's sort of the dream, which sometimes is realized more than others, is to find ways to turn even the big popcorn movies into character studies. Right?
Yes, right. You know, I worked with Akiva Goldsman on Hancock, I Am Legend, and I, Robot. And yeah! You know, and you know, one of the things that Akiva always does is, you know, he says, okay, we're taking all of the special effects out, we're taking all of the jokes out, we're taking everything out. If this were a stage play, what would you have to do to keep people's interest? And he got me really thinking and learning how to develop the character to be interesting without all the bells and whistles. And, you know, I would say working with Akiva has been one of the greatest experiences of my career. He's been one of the greatest teachers of how to understand the psychology of a character and how to develop the character in a way that's interesting when things aren't blowing up.
Yeah.
You know.
You're saying, like, I Am Legend easily could have been a stage play, right?
Yeah,
it's very
absolutely.
few characters,
Yes,
anyways.
it's me and a dog.
Yeah.
You know. And then, you know, my character was so arrogant, didn't want to be on the camera with anybody else. Midway through, he just chokes the dog, you know.
Well, so when the Smith family is at home and it's a quiet Saturday night, let's say, would you personally prefer to put on a kind of popcorn movie or a, you know, let's say a more of a biopic character study kind of thing?
That's interesting. I'm probably 3-1. I'm 3-1. You know, big giant. I love the DC, Marvel. Like, I just love those kinds of movies and how they're developing now. You know, like my favorite one of those of the past probably 10 years is Doctor Strange. Yeah. You know, and it's like I love that sweet spot where you can make a big giant movie, but at the center of it is real powerful ideas. Yeah. You know, and those kinds of movies are leaning that way more and more recently, and I think that's my favorite thing when you can make that kind of movie. You know, Heath Ledger to give that kind of performance in that kind of movie. Okay, yeah. I love that combination.
Awesome. Well, let's take a look at in Ali in 2001, The Pursuit of Happiness in 2006, and Concussion in 2015.
Woo!